Hi, I'm Don Sunman, and today I want to tell a story of airmail, postage stamps, and bananas. The Black Honduras is the rarest stamp that you've never heard of. It's the world's rarest airmail stamp and is a unique stamp, one of the rarest stamps in the world. We paid $165,000. There's one known. At one point there were four known, and in the 1950s and 60s it was the second most valuable stamp in the world, second only to the British Guiana. Black Honduras confused me when I was young and just collecting stamps because I expected it to be a black stamp. I saw the stamp and it's blue, and that doesn't make sense. But it's a 1915 stamp of Honduras printed in blue ink with a black overprint. There's stamps, the same stamp with different colored overprints that are less scarce, and so the Black Honduras refers to the black overprint. This stamp was issued in 1925. In the 1920s, Honduras was a small country in Central America, a small population, very rural, and only had trains on the coast, and their capital city was in the mountains. And the only way to get to the capital city was by mule, a 7-day trip. So airplane would be magic, to think that you could fly to the capital city from the coast in 2 hours. So in 1922, as part of the agreement between Pounds and the government agreed to print special airmail stamps. And like most airmail stamps, they would show an airplane instead of a bridge. In 1925, Pounds shows up with his airplane and his pilot and said, "I'm ready for my stamps, I want to start the service." And the government says, "Oh gosh, we forgot about that. And here, take these 1915 stamps and overprint them and use those stamps." So the government gave Pounds these 1915 stamps that show a bridge and that were leftovers. And Pounds found a printer that had a little hand-operated press, and they took these sheets of 100 and they broke them into little panes of 12 stamps. And they would overprint the 12 stamps with airmail in Spanish and 25 centavos, because there was a premium price for the airmail service. Sadly, Pounds' business went out of business after about 8 months. But it was really challenging back in 1925 to fly from the coast up into the mountains, and the service was erratic. I don't think there was an awful lot of business. This was a poor country, and so he shut down that same year. Well, one of the interesting things about Pounds' airmail service not working that well is there aren't that many stamps and not that many survivors because there wasn't much need. In the 1930s, John Luff, who was an amazing philatelist, he was president of the American Philatelic Society at one time. He started the New York Collectors Club and editor of the Scott Catalog. Well, somebody from Honduras mailed him a small group of stamps, and he was looking at it and said, "This one's different." So Luft identified this stamp and realized it was a stamp, and eventually identified the four that are known to exist. So in the 1930s, this was the Scott Catalog of its day, really tiny. And in the late 40s, this stamp had a catalog value of $10,000, and a single stamp of the Jenny invert catalog $3,500. So it gives you another example of the relative value of this rare Black Honduras compared to our famous Jenny invert. Yeah, the Black Honduras stamp was a golden stamp in the 50s and 60s. It was featured in the Big Life magazine cover, or magazine when Life was allowed to print stamps in color for the first time, and it was, I believe, front page coverage in the New York Times when it sold for the second highest price of any stamp ever. This stamp was last exhibited in 1936 at the Typex Stamp Show, and so that's over 3 generations ago. Yeah, it's a puzzle how this stamp that was so famous in the 1950s now it kind of fell into obscurity. And I believe it's because collectors of airmails owned the stamp and just kept it in their collection, and they had pleasure from the stamp, but average collectors forgot about it. It just wasn't in the news. Many rare stamps sell for high prices, and it gets covered in the newspapers and on TV. And this stamp has only sold a few times, and so it hasn't had the same coverage of other famous rare stamps. I bought this stamp because I think it's really a cool story. It's unique. It's the rarest airmail stamp of all time. It once was second in value only to the British Guiana, which people think could sell for $3 to $5 million if that comes up for sale. It just has a lot of romance, and I want to show it to stamp collectors. So I hope you'll come see this stamp either in New York in 2016 or in Monaco in 2013.